Welcome to the first day of security bootcamp. I just got back from work and I'm making this video, but I've been reviewing the material and we're going to start with phishing, which I think is one of the most fundamental things you need to know as a security operations center analyst, a SOC analyst, or any type of security analyst, to be honest. In any company, you're always going to be dealing with phishing. So let's get right into it. TRYHACKME SOC Level 1 Bootcamp, Episode 1, starting now. This is the SOC Level 1 path on TRYHACKME. Now, this is for people starting out as security analysts. They're probably trying to land that first job, which is what we're trying to do here. All you need is a basic understanding of fundamental computing principles and some broad understanding of different areas in cybersecurity. So let's get right into it. We're not going to go through these cyber defense frameworks because, it's knowledge training. You should already have some idea of the pyramid of pain or the cyber kill chain and the MITRE attacks and techniques. These are important things to know in your own time. I want to start with phishing. So we're going to start with the first room in phishing, the phishing analysis fundamentals. Now, I know it says, it's easy and it only takes about 30 minutes, but in reality, it's going to take us a little less than 30 minutes. So we're going to join the room. Now it says spam and phishing are common social engineering attacks. In social engineering, phishing attack vectors can be a phone call, text message, or an email. Blah, 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 blah. We should already have some idea of this. The email address, again, we should already have some idea of this. Now, a lot of this you should know already. What makes up an email address? Username at domain, right? This is pretty simple stuff. And you might think that, I'm going to skip through all of this, but it does come in handy, right? We have SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, which is used to handle the sending of emails. POP3, transferring emails between a client and a mail server, and IMAP, which is responsible for transferring emails between a client and a mail server. POP3 and IMAP are quite similar, but there are some differences. For example, in POP3, emails are downloaded and stored in a single device, while in IMAP, emails are stored on the server and can be downloaded to multiple devices. And you can check out this picture. So the email starts from alexa@janedoe.com, goes to the SMTP server. Then the SMTP server hits up the DNS server and says, hey, this is where this email is going. Do you know the direction? So then the DNS server sends that information back to the SMTP server so it knows what route to take. And then the email goes through the firewall out of janedoe.com to the internet, then through the firewall of the other place, through the firewall of the other network, into the SMTP server on that network, then into the POP3 or IMAP server, and then the recipient receives the email. So let's just go through some of the questions here. What port is classified as secure transport for SMTP? If we look properly, we can see here SMTP is port 25. So port 20. Wait, it says secure transport for SMTP. Sometimes they're always trying to confuse you. Some of these questions can be a little bit tricky. And you also notice that the answers aren't always in the session. And so it's something as simple as a quick search. And that's how they get you sometimes. So what we're going to do is just do a simple quick Google search, port for secure SMTP 587. You don't need to know every single port that's out there, but you do need to have an idea of what the protocol does and also some of the most important ports. So right now we're seeing the most important ports that are related to phishing. And well, we're starting with, emails in general. We need to understand the basis of emails, first of all, how they come, how they go, what ports and protocols are they on, and then from there we can move forward with identifying what emails are fishy and which ones are not. So now moving on to email headers, which you will use quite a lot when investigating phishes. So now we know how an email travels from point A to B, but we need to look at the parts of the email. So we've got the email header, which is information about the email, such as the email servers relayed the email. And then we've got the body, which is text or some sort of formatted text, right? So let's look at the headers first of all. Some of the most important email header fields would be from, which is where the email is coming from, the subject, the date that the email was sent, and to whom was it sent, right? Now, let's look at this diagram here. We notice they have it numbered as well, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1, from. Number 2, the subject. Number 3, the date. And number 4, to whom it was sent. These are some of the most important things to look out for when you receive an email that you need to investigate, or you receive an email in your own inbox, because you don't want to be the security guy who clicks on a fish. If you want to view the header information, if you're using Yahoo, there is a diagram here of how to do it. This picture shows what it's like to view the email header within Yahoo, but I know a lot of people use Gmail. In Gmail, it's pretty straightforward. You hit the 3 dots on the right side and click show original, and the headers of your email will pop up as well. So back to the path. The most important things to look out for, like we said, were subject, from, to, and date. But another important thing as well, or some other email header fields of interest would be the X originating IP, which is the IP address that the email was sent from. Then there's also the SMTP mail from. Remember, we were speaking about the SMTP just earlier on there. That indicates the domain that the email was sent from. And these headers are within authentication results. And so when you open your header information, you can see a lot more about the email. So for example, just looking at this snippet they have here, you can see return path, which is also similar to, so just looking at this email snippet, under authentication results, you can see whether the email passed DKIM, SPF, and whether it passed DMARC as well, which are things that we will discuss as we move on to further rooms. But for now, we're looking at the smtp.mail from, which indicates the domain where the email came from. Then we also have the subject, from, to, and date, but we also have reply to. And what does reply to mean? Respond to an email. The address in reply to is where your email actually goes to. So your email doesn't always go to what it says in from, because as we can see here, the email address in the from header is different than to the email address in the reply to. And so literally, as it says here, the sender is newsletter at whatever domain.com, but if a recipient replies, it goes to reply at blah blah blah, not newsletter at that. In this scenario, the domains match, but if we're dealing with the fish, sometimes it's easy to spot a fish when the reply to domain doesn't match the from domain. Now let's answer a couple of questions. What email header is the same as reply to? Now you need a bit of experience to know this one, but I didn't mention it before, but we also have the return path here. Now this is a very important header you want to look at. Return path and reply to are basically the same. So we're going to put return path. Oh, there we go. How are return path and reply to the same, you might ask? Well, for example, we can see here that this says reply at the domain, and then here this says read back numbers at the domain. What's going on? Basically, the reply to is for SMTP responses. Like we said, when you reply to an email, your email goes to whatever is in the reply to header. Return path is also kind of the same, except return path holds onto bounced or undelivered emails. And so they are quite similar in the sense that when you respond to an email, this is where your email goes, but it depends on whether your email is actually delivered or not. Once you find the email sender's IP address, where can you retrieve more information about the IP? Now, I'm going to tell you something serious right now. This is my problem with TRYHACKME, right? TRYHACKME is great for understanding, but you will spend 20 minutes trying to find an answer that is nowhere to be found on the system. The answer to this question, this is not a hard question. This is not a do or die question. This is a question that you can easily Google and move on. But it's just the fact that the answer is not written anywhere on TRYHACKME. Now, rn.net is a platform that administers IPs. So, yeah, it gives you the most information about IPs. How are you supposed to know that? Through word of mouth, I suppose, through experience. I don't know why they would ask such a question, but let's move on. TRYHACKME is actually pretty useful. Email body, right? This is also another important part. This is actually where you get to see social engineering tactics at hand. But let's analyze according to how TRYHACKME is listed it out. So we're looking at a text only email here. Hi, John. Hope you had a good weekend. Could you please send over a few dates and times that you're available to discuss work this week, right? Regular type of email. Then if the email is HTML formatted, it's going to have a different look to it. If you're curious about what it looks like in Gmail, it's quite the same. Go to the three dots on the side, click view original, and you'll be able to see the source code for your email. And it'll show you, it'll look something like this. And this is obviously an HTML file. Now we can move on to other things. For example, here we can see that there is a picture in the email and there is also an attachment. Let's get into the nitty gritty of what we actually do need to look for. Now, if you view this attachment, these payment up attachment within the source code, it should look something like this. So application, PDF, the name of the file, X attachment ID, that is the name of the file as it's been saved in the header. Now, looking at the email body, you can read and sort of source out the social engineering aspect of it. But with attachments, it's a little bit trickier. Looking at the attachments within the source code, we can see the headers that deal with attachments. So content type, content disposition, and X attachment ID, and also content transfer encoding. So it was encoded in base 64, which means you can decode it. If you have a decoder, you can decode the attachment and save it to your machine. But read the warning. Proceed with caution and make sure you don't double click an email's attachment by accident. Like I said, you don't want to be the security guy clicking on the fish. You want to find out if it's a fish, or maybe you have your suspicions that it's a fish, but do not open anything unless you're on an isolated machine. So let's answer the questions. In the above screenshots, what is the URI of the blocked image? Now, if we look at the source code, we should be able to find the URI of the blocked image. We can see it right here, HTTPS, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to write that in. In the screenshots above, what is the name of the PDF attachment? You can see that the name of the PDF attachment is here, payment updates ID.pdf. Virtual machine, view the information email2.txt and reconstruct the PDF using the base 64 data. What is the text within the PDF? So now things are getting a bit heated. Let's actually get to the nitty gritty. Okay, so in the attached virtual machine, view the information email2.txt. So now we're going to spin up the virtual machine. So you go to the top, click start machine. It's going to take a few seconds. You can also see your progress in the room. We're about 60% right now. So I think we're doing pretty well. We're making pretty decent time. Okay, your machine should have loaded up by now. Keep in mind that if you don't have the premium version, it will only last about an hour, as you can see at the bottom there. So in the attached virtual machine, let's find email2.txt. We're looking for email2.txt. It should be in the email samples. Perfect. Email2.txt seems to contain the code, the encoding, the base64 encoding for PDF ZMPALGH. And so what we've been tasked to do is reconstruct the PDF using this base64 data and then find a text within the PDF. Now, how do you do this? A lot of the time, stuff would be saved in tools for you to use. So here we have CyberChef. If you're not familiar with CyberChef, it is used for decoding data. So now we're going to spin it up. Spinning up CyberChef. Okay. I'm going to expand this, make it a full screen so that we can really see what we're doing here. So on this side is the recipe, input, output to base64. But if you remember, we already saw that the file was encoded as base64. So we're going from base64 to decode it. So you drag and drop from base64. Now the input is what was in email2.txt. So we're going to go back to email samples, email2.txt. We're going to copy all of this data. It's quite a lot of data, actually. So we've copied and now we're pasting into CyberChef. Spectacular. Okay, so now we can see what the PDF looks like. It's still a little confusing, to be honest. It's not super straightforward. However, you can definitely tell that this is a PDF. Now, I know that this may be confusing because it still looks like a bunch of gibberish, but what we're going to do is save output to a file. So we're saving it as PDF file .pdf. Okay. Now, when we open this PDF, that's when the real source happens. You need to give it a second to load up, but there we go. Easy peasy. There we have the secret code within. So you just copy this and go back to your TRYHACKME. You can actually close this. You can exit split view because it's already open up at the top here. And then just paste into the system. 1 second. Submit. And there we go. Fantastic. Now let's move on to the types of phishing. Now there's quite a few types of phishing. It can be classified as spam, which is just junk email, but some of these are malicious and they're classified more specifically as mal spam. Then obviously we have your regular type of phishing, trying to lure individuals to provide sensitive information. Then there's spear phishing, where it's directly targeted at a specific individual or a specific organization, and they're looking for something exact. Whaling, similar to spear phishing, but it applies to people in a high level position within companies. So the CEO, the CFO, big guys, the top guns. Then there's smishing, is phishing via mobile devices, via SMS, henceforth smishing. Then vishing, which is basically smishing or phishing, but rather than text messages, it's social engineering attacks over the phone. So voice phishing, hence vishing. Now, there are many characteristics that overlap in these different types of phishing emails. So there's email spoofing, where you might see that the from header, the email address in the from header doesn't match the email address in the reply to, or like the domains don't match. That's definitely a red flag. If the subject line includes a sense of urgency, or contain certain keywords like invoices suspended, please, urgent, invoice, pay now, or change the bank account number now, something like that, trying to rush you basically. If the email body is designed to match something that you naturally would trust, such as Amazon or Google, but you can see that the email address doesn't line up with Amazon or Google, or if it's poorly formatted or written, like it's coming from a company like Amazon, but there's spelling mistakes in a formal email, that doesn't really check out. If it's using generic content, so it's not necessarily specified for you, but it's requiring some personal information, that's very sketchy. Hyperlinks, do not click. I cannot stress this enough. Do not click on links that you are not sure where they are heading. Always hover over the link so that you can see where it actually is going to, what the full URL is, and you can copy and paste it into your browser and then read it to know exactly what's going on. And obviously, like we've just seen, malicious attachments are also a great way for scammers to get you. Analyze the email titled email3.eml within the virtual machine. Okay, so we're right back to the nitty gritty. Let's get some practical in. No, Alexa is the victim, Billy is the analyst. Alexa forwarded the email to Benny for analysis. Okay, so let's go to the virtual machine, email3.eml, saved under file samples. So we see it says support at techbee.com, the return path, the reply to support at techbee.com. It's from support at techbee.com. From my experience, this looks like something that has been encoded. Now, a lot of these things, not everybody can tell you, oh, this is what it is, or this is what it isn't. Being able to spot things in all this mumbo jumbo, it just takes time. It takes a while. You need to get a little bit of experience. And we can also see the subject is also encoded. So when we see something encoded and we want to decode it, we go to CyberChef. Okay. So now we're gonna decode from base 64 like we did last time. Let's put base 64 into the recipe and decode this. Data is not a valid byte array. Okay. We might need to remove some of this. I think we're getting there. There we go. So a lot of these things just take a bit of trial and error, but there we go. Thank you, Home Depot. So that is what they're trying to pretend to be. Let's see what the subject says as well. Let's have a bit of fun with this. As we've noted, we need to take off parts of the subject in order to get what we want. Okay, so as we've noted, we need to get parts of this subject off to get what we want. Remove this. And there we go. Order placed, your order ID placed successfully. So they're pretending to be Home Depot, sending you an email about an order that you've placed, quote unquote. So they pretend to be Home Depot. What is the sender's email? The sender's email is support@techbee.com. But we've seen that there is nothing about TechBee within the name or the subject line. What is the subject line? Order place. What is the URL link for? Click here. Enter the defanged URL. Let's head back to the email and find click here. So we're looking for click here. So we see click here in the header information. So the URL is being referenced through click here. You can see where the A tag starts and where the A tag finishes. So we're going to copy http techbee.com blah 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 blah. So copy from within the quotation mark to the end of the quotation mark. So we're copying within the quotation marks, going to CyberChef to defang it for us. Now, something I forgot to mention is when you're copying and pasting from the virtual machine into TryHackMe itself, you need to go to the left, click this little box there, and then click clipboard. So there you have clipboard. There you can copy what you've copied within the virtual machine and then paste it onto TryHackMe itself. So 1 second there. Make sure you paste from the start of the question. There we go. Submit. It should work. But again, these are some of the issues with TryHackMe. It's a great tool to work with, but just sometimes it messes with your head a bit. But this is not a do or die question. All you have to do is move on to the next question. If it's not working, it's not working. It's not, there's nothing really you can do about it. You move on to the next question. But here we are, we're done. What is BEC? A BEC, business email compromise. And this is when an attacker gains control of an internal employee's account and then uses the compromised email account to get other employees to perform fraudulent actions. So basically, you're working in a company and somebody gets hold of your account and then they email another employee in the company saying, hey, can you do ABCD for me? Now, because there's already that trust between you and that other employee, when they see your email, they're going to think, oh yeah, this is completely fine. This person that I already know just asked for this. And so they're going to go through with it, when in actuality, it's actually the attacker. So there you have it. We made it just under 30 minutes. I know it's just one room, but you can see how intense TryHackMe SOC Level 1 can be. Let's keep this up, keep going every single week. Like and subscribe and stay tuned for more security bootcamp episodes.